In a small village by the sea, there lived a mermaid named Nia. She had long, flowing hair that shone like golden threads under the sun, and her tail sparkled like diamonds beneath the waves. But there was something different about Nia compared to the other mermaids that lived in the sea. Nia didn't have children. In a world where mermaids were praised for their ability to care for their families and raise their young, Nia was an outcast. The other mermaids, and even the villagers by the shore, would gossip and laugh at her. "She'll never be a real woman," they'd say. "How can she be a mermaid without children?" The village women, as kind as they could be, would often whisper behind her back. Nia would hear their laughter, but she never let it show on her face. She swam in silence, keeping to the deepest parts of the ocean, far from their judgment. But inside, the hurt grew. As Nia swam beneath the waves, the salt water couldn't wash away the sadness she carried. She dreamed of a life where she, too, could be a mother. She longed for a family to care for and protect. But no matter how hard she tried, it never happened. One sunny morning, as Nia lay near the shore, watching the villagers as they went about their day, a strange sight caught her eye. A man had come down to the beach. He was tall and strong, with a weathered face and a fisherman's net over his shoulder. His name was Kofi, a newcomer to the village. Kofi had heard the stories. Everyone had warned him about the mermaid who lived by the coast. They said she was cursed, that she couldn't have children, and that she was a sad, lonely creature of the sea. But Kofi wasn't afraid. He had always believed that there was more to every story. People, and even mermaids, deserved a chance to be understood. When he saw Nia, he didn't flee or laugh. Instead, he stood still and watched her. He saw the sadness in her eyes, even from afar. It wasn't the kind of sadness that came from loneliness. It was the kind that came from something much deeper. Nia noticed him too. She had never seen a man so close to the water before. She expected him to run away or shout at her, just like the others had done. But Kofi didn't. He simply smiled and waved. "Hello," he called out gently. "I've heard stories about you." Nia didn't answer. Instead, she glided closer to the shore, curious but still cautious. Her heart raced. What did this man want? "They say you can't have children," Kofi said, his voice calm and understanding. "Is that true?" Nia looked away, the words cutting deeper than she wanted to admit. "Yes," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Kofi stepped closer, his eyes kind. "I don't believe in curses," he said simply. "Everyone deserves a chance at happiness. Even you." Nia was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. The villagers only saw her as a failure, a mermaid without a family. But here was this stranger, looking at her as if she was more than just her curse. "Why are you here?" Nia asked, her curiosity growing. "I came to see for myself. People talk a lot, but I wanted to know the truth." Kofi's eyes met hers, and for the first time in a long time, Nia felt like someone actually saw her. Not just as a mermaid, but as a being worthy of kindness and understanding. She didn't know why, but she felt drawn to him. There was something about Kofi that made her want to share her pain, her dreams, and maybe even her hope. Over the next few days, Kofi returned to the shore, always at dawn. Nia would be waiting for him, always swimming just beneath the surface, watching from a distance. Slowly, they started to talk more. Kofi learned about Nia's past, the curse that had been placed on her, and the years she had spent searching for a way to lift it. The curse, as Nia explained, had been cast by an old sea witch. She had told Nia that as long as she remained childless, she would never be truly free. The sea would always hold her, and she would never know what it felt like to have a family of her own. "I've searched the depths of the ocean," Nia said one evening, her voice full of sorrow. "I've swum to places so deep, no mermaid should go, but the stone that can break the curse, it's impossible to find." Kofi, hearing the pain in her words, made a promise to her. "I'll help you," he said without hesitation. "I'll help you find this stone. Together we'll break the curse." Nia looked at him, her heart full of doubt and disbelief. "How can you help? You are just a human." "I believe in you," Kofi replied simply. And I believe in the power of hope. Maybe the stone is closer than we think. For the first time in a long while, Nia felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps there was a way out of her curse. Perhaps, with Kofi's help, she could finally live the life she had always dreamed of. The next day, Nia and Kofi began their journey together. Kofi rented a small boat, and they sailed further than Nia had ever dared to go before. They ventured into waters that few humans or mermaids ever visited. The sea was vast, and the search seemed endless. But Nia had never felt so determined. Kofi's belief in her was like a light that guided her through the darkness of her doubt. They traveled across rough seas, through thick fog, and into hidden coves that no one had dared explore. All the while, Nia felt a sense of freedom she had never known. With Kofi beside her, there was hope in the air. Together, they could overcome anything. I believe we're getting closer, Kofi said, his voice filled with certainty as they sailed through the quiet waters. Nia nodded, her heart beating faster. It felt as though they were on the edge of something huge, something that could change everything. But as they sailed deeper into the heart of the ocean, neither of them knew just how much their journey would change their lives, and the truth behind the curse. Days turned into weeks as Nia and Kofi sailed farther into the unknown waters. The villagers had long stopped asking questions about where Kofi had gone, and no one knew where Nia had disappeared to. But it didn't matter. She wasn't concerned with the village anymore. All that mattered now was breaking the curse and finding a way to live a full life, one where she could be loved and have a family. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, the boat drifted to an island neither of them had ever seen before. The island was small, surrounded by jagged rocks, but there was something about it that called to Nia. Her heart fluttered as she felt a strange pull, like the island was waiting for her. This is it, Nia whispered. I can feel it. Kofi, ever the skeptic but hopeful, nodded. He had seen Nia's determination grow stronger each day, and he could sense that they were nearing something important. Without hesitation, he steered the boat toward the shore. As they approached the beach, Nia could see that the sand was black, shimmering like it had been kissed by the stars. There was no sign of life on the island, but the air felt thick with magic. Nia stepped onto the sand, her tail swishing gently as she waded deeper into the shallow water. Her eyes scanned the horizon, but there was no sign of the stone, no sign of what she had been searching for all this time. Are you sure this is the place? Kofi asked, still looking around. I can feel it, Nia said again, her voice calm but full of certainty. The stone is here. I know it. The two of them walked through the dense jungle that covered most of the island. The trees were tall, their branches twisting into strange shapes, and the air was filled with the sound of distant, unearthly whispers. Nia felt the pull growing stronger the deeper they went, and she knew they were close. Finally, they reached the heart of the island, where a massive stone formation stood. The rock was carved with ancient symbols that Nia had seen in the old scrolls she had once studied. This was it, the stone she had been searching for. But there was something strange about it. The stone wasn't just a simple object. It was a doorway, a threshold between worlds. This is it, Nia said, her voice filled with awe. Kofi's eyes widened. What do we do now? Nia didn't answer immediately. She stood in front of the stone, her eyes tracing the markings on it. She had learned over the years that the stone needed something special, to unlock its power. A chill ran through her as she remembered the last part of the curse. The sea which had said that the stone could only be activated with a sacrifice, something that came from the heart. But what could she give? What would be enough to break the curse? The whispers of the jungle seemed to grow louder, and Nia's thoughts raced. Couldn't be just any sacrifice, it had to be the right one. She had to give something up that meant everything to her. Kofi stepped beside her, noticing the troubled look on her face. What's wrong? He asked gently. Nia turned to him, her eyes searching his face. The curse? It requires a sacrifice, she said, her voice shaking. And I don't know if I can do it. What kind of sacrifice? Kofi asked, confused. Nia's gaze dropped to the ground. The witch said it had to be something precious. Something I can't live without. Kofi frowned, trying to understand. Then it hit him. It's you, isn't it? You have to give up the very thing you're seeking. Your chance at a family. Nia nodded slowly. Her heart clenched at the thought of it. She had dreamed for so long of becoming a mother, of having a family. But if it meant breaking the curse, would she be willing to give it up? Before she could answer, a voice echoed from behind them. It was soft at first, like a breeze, but it grew louder, more distinct. Do you truly believe that giving up your dreams will break the curse? The voice asked. Both Nia and Kofi turned around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from the very air around them. Who's there? Nia demanded, her heart racing. The voice spoke again, this time clearer. I am the spirit of the island. I've watched over this place for centuries. You must understand, Nia, the curse cannot be lifted by a simple sacrifice. It is not about giving up your dreams. It is about facing your deepest fear and embracing your true self. Nia's mind spun. What do you mean? She asked, struggling to understand. The spirit continued, its voice gentle yet firm. You've spent so many years believing that being a mother is what will make you whole. But your true power lies not in what you can give, but in who you are. You are not defined by your inability to have children. You are defined by your strength, your heart, and the choices you make. Kofi looked at Nia with wide eyes. The realization was beginning to hit him too. Nia's heart pounded. So, the curse wasn't about being a mother? No, the spirit replied. The curse was about teaching you that your worth isn't measured by what you lack. You must learn to see your own value before anything else. Nia stood there, speechless. The weight of the spirit's words settled deep within her. She realized that she had spent so much time trying to prove herself, trying to be something she was not, that she had forgotten who she truly was. Kofi reached out to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You are enough, he said softly. You always have been. Nia looked into Kofi's eyes, and for the first time, she felt a sense of peace. She didn't need to change who she was. She didn't need to have children to be complete. The love she had for herself and the love she shared with others was enough. Suddenly, the stone in front of them began to glow, its markings shifting and swirling. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and a warm, golden light surrounded them. The spirit spoke one last time. You have broken the curse, Nia. Not through sacrifice, but through acceptance. You are free. And in that moment, Nia felt the curse dissolve. She had found her freedom, not in becoming something she was not, but in accepting who she truly was. As Nia and Kofi stood on the island, the once dark sky began to clear. The air felt lighter, the sea calmer, and for the first time in many years, Nia felt truly at peace. The curse was gone, but the journey wasn't over. Nia still had so much to learn, and Kofi had shown her that love, understanding, and self-acceptance were the most powerful forces in the world. They both looked at each other, knowing that their adventure together had only just begun. And in that moment, Nia understood. The most important thing wasn't the family she had once dreamed of, but the family she had found in the love and kindness of others. Nia and Kofi returned to the village, but things were different now. The air felt different, lighter, as though the weight of the curse had been lifted not just from Nia, but from the entire village. As they sailed back, Nia could feel a shift in herself. She no longer carried the same burdens she once did. The self-doubt, the feelings of inadequacy, and the desperation to be something she wasn't, had faded away. When they arrived, the villagers gathered around, surprised to see Nia back and looking so changed. They had all whispered about her absence, some assuming she had given up and returned to the sea to live out her days as a lonely mermaid. But they were wrong. Nia had found something far more valuable. The villagers watched in awe as Nia stepped onto the shore, holding Kofi's hand. She looked different, not just in appearance but in spirit. She radiated a quiet strength, a peace that they had never seen before. The old tales about the Barren Mermaid were still fresh in their minds, but Nia no longer felt the need to prove herself to them. Mira, the village elder, was the first to approach her. "Nia," she said softly, her voice full of curiosity and a touch of respect. "I see something in you now. What has happened? You seem different." Nia smiled, her heart full of warmth. "I have learned that my worth is not tied to anything outside of myself. I no longer need to be what others expect of me. I am enough as I am." Mira studied her for a moment, her eyes softening. "You are right. We have all lived by old beliefs, but maybe it is time to let go of the past and look forward to something new." As Mira spoke, the other villagers gathered around, murmuring in agreement. They had watched Nia grow from a young girl with a dream of motherhood into a woman who had embraced her own strength. It was a transformation they couldn't ignore. Kofi stood beside Nia, offering his support without a word. He had always believed in her, but now he could see the true depth of her inner strength. He had been part of her journey, but it was Nia who had truly found herself. Days passed, and life in the village began to settle into a new rhythm. Nia spent time with the people, sharing her newfound wisdom about self-acceptance and love. She had become a symbol of change, of letting go of old fears and embracing the unknown. One evening, as Nia sat by the fire with Kofi, the stars above sparkling like jewels, she felt a quiet tug on her heart. She had come so far, and yet, there was one thing she hadn't fully addressed. The lingering feeling that she was somehow still incomplete. But it wasn't because of the lack of children or family. It was because she had never fully allowed herself to open up to the possibility of love in a different form. As the flames flickered, Kofi looked at her. "Nia, there's something I need to tell you." She turned to him, her heart racing. "What is it?" Kofi took a deep breath. "When you left, I was afraid. Afraid of losing you to the curse. Afraid that I would never see you again. But what I've realized is that it wasn't just fear of the curse. I was afraid of not being enough for you. I've watched you grow and I've seen you change. You are stronger than I could ever imagine. But I also realized something else. I don't need to be perfect for you. I just need to love you as you are." Nia's heart fluttered. She had always thought that her journey was about seeking validation, about proving herself to the world. But now, she realized that the love she had been seeking was already here, beside her, in Kofi. The love wasn't conditional on what she could or couldn't give. It was about being accepted for who they both were, flaws and all. "I've always been afraid," Nia whispered, looking at Kofi. "Afraid that I wasn't worthy of love. But you've shown me that I don't need to be afraid anymore. I am worthy, not because of what I can give, but because of who I am." Kofi smiled, reaching for her hand. "You are more than enough, Nia, and I love you." Nia felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never known this kind of peace before, the kind that comes from unconditional love, from being seen for who she truly was. And for the first time, she felt completely free. In the weeks that followed, Nia and Kofi's bond grew stronger. The villagers, inspired by Nia's transformation, began to open their hearts to the idea that change could be a good thing. They began to challenge old traditions that had held them captive, replacing them with new beliefs that emphasized love, acceptance, and mutual respect. Mira, the elder, led the way, speaking out against the rigid expectations that had once governed their lives. "We have clung to old beliefs for too long," she said during a village meeting. "It is time we accept that love is not just about what we expect from others, but what we give freely, without conditions." The village slowly began to transform, as people started to embrace the idea that true happiness came from acceptance, not from following rules that didn't serve them anymore. The women, who had once feared being alone, began to form strong bonds of friendship, and the men, who had always been taught to suppress their emotions, began to open up and support one another in ways they hadn't before. Nia watched all of this unfold, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She had not only broken her own curse, but had helped free an entire community from the constraints of old beliefs. Months passed, and Nia and Kofi found themselves living a life of peace and harmony. They had no children, but they had each other, and their love was more than enough. They were content not because of what they didn't have, but because of what they shared. One day, as Nia walked along the beach, Watching the waves crash against the shore, she felt a strange sense of peace. She had done it. She had broken the curse. But more than that, she had found herself, and in doing so, she had found her place in the world. Kofi joined her, wrapping his arms around her. Together, they watched the horizon, knowing that no matter what came next, they had already created something beautiful. And for the first time in her life, Nia realized that love wasn't just about receiving. It was about giving and sharing. And in that, she had found everything she needed. As the village continued to thrive, Nia and Kofi's life seemed to flow smoothly, but the world beyond the village was changing. News of Nia's transformation had spread far and wide, reaching the neighboring villages and even distant towns. People began visiting to hear her story, seeking wisdom and guidance. Some came with hope, while others arrived out of curiosity or skepticism. One day, a stranger came to the village. He was tall, dressed in dark robes with intricate patterns that marked him as someone of high status. He introduced himself as a scholar from a distant land, someone who studied ancient myths and curses. "I have heard the story of the Barren Mermaid," he said to Nia, his eyes filled with intrigue. "They say you were once cursed, but now you are free. I wonder if it was truly the curse that kept you barren, or if it was something more." Nia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She hadn't expected to be confronted with the very thing she had worked so hard to overcome. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to stay calm. The scholar smiled slightly, almost as if he had been waiting for this moment. "There are many who believe that the mermaid's curse was not just about fertility. It was about a deeper bond, one that ties you to the sea and its mysteries. Some believe that your freedom, your peace is only temporary. That one day, the sea will call to you once more." Nia took a deep breath. She had thought she had left the past behind her, but here it was, staring her in the face. The doubts, the fears, and the questions she had buried deep inside were starting to surface again. Could it be true? Was the peace she had found in her life just a temporary illusion? Kofi, sensing the tension, stepped closer to Nia and placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've already faced that curse. We've already broken free of it. We're living proof that there's more to life than what the sea dictated." The scholar's smile faded. "But there are other forces at play, forces that are not so easily escaped. The sea has a will of its own, and its power is far greater than any of us can understand. You may have outlasted its curse, but it will always be watching." Nia turned to Kofi, her heart heavy with uncertainty. Could the sea really have that much control over her life? Could it pull her back into its depths, no matter how much she wanted to stay on land? For the first time in a long while, Nia felt the fear creeping back in. "I don't believe in being controlled by something so distant," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I fought too hard to let that fear define me again." The scholar nodded thoughtfully but said nothing more. He left as suddenly as he had arrived, leaving Nia and Kofi standing on the shore, staring out at the vast expanse of the ocean. As days passed, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that the scholar's words had touched something deep inside her. The sea had always been a part of her life, a part of her identity, the part of her that felt like an outsider in her own village, the part that made her yearn for something more. But now, she was no longer the same woman who had first heard the call of the ocean. She tried to dismiss the lingering thoughts, telling herself that she had found a place for herself on land with Kofi, and that was enough. But every now and then, in the quiet moments, she would feel a pull toward the sea again. A pull that reminded her of the depths of her own soul, a reminder of the mysterious, untamed force that had shaped her past. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Nia stood by the edge of the water, her feet sinking into the sand. The waves crashed gently against the shore, and for a moment, she let herself relax, remembering the peace she had found in Kofi's love and the community she had helped build. But then, just as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, she felt it. The familiar pull, the soft whisper of the sea calling to her once again. "Why now?" she whispered to herself, her heart racing. Kofi joined her by the water, sensing her unease. "What's wrong?" Nia turned to him, her voice shaky. The sea is calling me again. I can feel it deep inside me. Kofi took her hands gently, his gaze steady. It's the past, Nia. You've already made peace with it. The sea may have once been a part of you, but it's not the only part of you anymore. You have a life here with me, and with the people who care about you. Nia nodded, squeezing his hands. She knew he was right, but a small part of her, one she couldn't easily silence, still longed for the mystery, the beauty, and the power of the sea. I don't want to go back, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But I don't know how to stop this pull. Kofi pulled her into an embrace, his warmth grounding her. We don't have to stop it, but we don't have to follow it blindly either. We'll face it together, whatever it may be. For a long time, they stood there, watching the waves, as Nia tried to quiet the storm inside her heart. She knew that the pull of the sea wasn't something she could completely escape, but she also knew that she didn't have to face it alone. As time passed, Nia's internal battle grew stronger. She couldn't ignore the call of the sea, but she also couldn't bear the thought of leaving Kofi behind. Every time she heard the waves crashing against the shore, she felt a mix of longing and fear. She wanted to explore the depths of the ocean, to understand the mysteries that had always called to her. But she knew that doing so would mean leaving everything she had built here. One afternoon, while walking along the beach, Nia sat down on a rock and gazed out at the sea. It was as though the ocean itself was waiting for her decision, its waves lapping gently at the shore, as if urging her to return. Suddenly, Kofi appeared beside her, sitting down without a word. For a while, they both just watched the horizon, the weight of the unspoken tension hanging between them. Finally, Kofi spoke. What do you want, Nia? Nia looked at him, her heart torn. I don't know. I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions. The sea, and here with you with everything we've built. I don't know if I can choose. Kofi took her hand, his gaze unwavering. You don't have to choose between them. You can follow the sea, if it calls to you, but you don't have to lose yourself in it. And you don't have to leave behind the life we have here. We can find a balance, Nia. Nia's heart swelled with emotion. He understood. He understood her in a way she hadn't thought possible. I don't want to lose what we have, Kofi. You won't, he assured her. We'll find a way, together. And in that moment, Nia realized that her future didn't have to be defined by one path or the other. She didn't have to choose between the sea and the land. She could find her own way, forging a life that was truly hers. I knew that her journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. The call of the sea would always be there, but so would her love for Kofi and her place in the village. She didn't need to choose one over the other. Instead, she would create a new path that honored both. With Kofi by her side, Nia embraced the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would discover that sometimes, the greatest adventure is finding balance between two worlds. Nia had made her decision. She would not turn her back on the call of the sea, but she would also not leave behind the life she had built with Kofi. Together, they would forge a path that connected both worlds, the land and the sea. But as time passed, Nia began to realize that her decision wasn't as simple as she had hoped. The sea was more than just a place for her to visit or even live near. It was part of who she was. And despite her best efforts, the pull grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, while walking along the shore, Nia noticed something she had never seen before. The waves were different, darker, more turbulent. The sea seemed restless, almost as though it were alive, waiting for her to acknowledge it. She had felt the sea's call many times before, but this was something else. The air was thick with an energy she couldn't explain. Nia stood still, her heart racing. It was as though the sea itself was testing her resolve, challenging her to step into its depths once again. Just as she was about to take a step closer, Kofi appeared beside her. His face was etched with concern, his gaze fixed on the turbulent waves. Nia, what's going on? He asked, his voice filled with worry. This doesn't feel right. I don't know, she whispered, her voice trembling. The sea, it's different today. It feels like it's waiting for me. calling me in a way I've never felt before. Kofi reached for her hand, his grip tight and reassuring. You don't have to answer it, Nia. Not like this. We can find a way to understand it, but you don't have to let it pull you into something you're not ready for. Nia looked at him, the conflict within her heart growing heavier. She didn't want to lose him, and yet, a part of her knew that she had to face this challenge, whatever it might be. I have to go, she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. Kofi's eyes widened in surprise and pain. What do you mean, Nia? I need to understand, she interrupted gently. I need to know what the sea wants from me. I can't keep running from it, Kofi. But I won't go alone. Kofi hesitated, his heart torn. He didn't want her to go, to risk herself in the unknown, where the sea might claim her once again. But he also knew that Nia needed to face this. For her peace. For her own understanding. I'll go with you, Kofi finally said. His voice firm but filled with love. I'm not letting you do this alone. And so, hand in hand, they made their way deeper into the darkness of the night, toward the restless sea. As Nia and Kofi approached the water's edge, the air grew thicker, heavier, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The waves seemed to shimmer under the moonlight, their movements now slow, deliberate, almost like they were preparing for something significant. Nia stepped forward, the sand cold beneath her feet. The sea's pull was undeniable now, felt like a force beyond her control. Every part of her screamed to turn back, but she couldn't. She had to understand. Kofi stopped beside her. Are you sure about this? He asked, his voice tight with worry. Nia looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. I have to know what's out there, Kofi. I can't let this mystery haunt me forever. She stepped into the water, the cool waves lapping against her legs. For a moment, she felt as though she were being embraced by the sea itself. Its cool, familiar touch like an old friend welcoming her home. But as she ventured deeper, the ocean's mood shifted. The waves grew stronger, the water colder. The whispers Nia had heard before, those faint, distant voices, grew louder, more insistent. It was as though the sea was speaking to her, calling her back to a place she had long since left behind. Kofi reached out to her, his voice filled with desperation. Nia, come back. This isn't the same. The sea, it's angry. But Nia didn't listen. She was too far gone. Her body moved with the rhythm of the waves, her mind becoming clouded with the voice of the ocean. Come to us, child. The voice echoed in her mind. It was a deep, resonant voice, one she recognized, though she could not place it. You belong to the sea. You were never meant to leave. Return to us, and you will understand. The water rose around her, now swirling violently. Nia felt herself being drawn deeper, pulled by an unseen force. Her thoughts became muddled, and for a moment, she wondered if she was slipping back into the same dark place she had been all those years ago. Would she lose herself again? Would the curse claim her once more? But just as she felt herself begin to slip under, Kofi's strong arms pulled her back, holding her tightly. Nia, don't do this. You're not alone anymore. You don't have to go back to that life. His voice pierced through the chaos in her mind. Nia gasped, the sound of his words pulling her back to the surface. She looked up at him, her vision blurry but filled with the truth of his love. With a great effort, Nia stepped back from the swirling water, her body trembling as the waves retreated. Kofi held her close, both of them soaked and shivering from the cold. I won't go, she whispered, her voice breaking. I won't let it take me again. The night was still as they stood together on the shore, the sea now calm, as if it had never been disturbed. The moonlight cast a gentle glow over them, and for the first time in a long while, Nia felt a sense of peace wash over her. Kofi looked at her, his eyes filled with love and concern. You're safe now. You don't have to fear the sea anymore. Nia nodded, but deep inside, she knew that the sea would always be a part of her. But it didn't have to control her. It didn't have to define her future. I don't know what that voice was, she said, her voice low. But I know I'm stronger than it now. Kofi smiled gently, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. We're stronger together. Whatever the sea is, we'll face it as one. Nia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she had learned. She had faced her fears, but the journey wasn't over. The sea would always be part of her, an important part, but it no longer controlled her. She had found something stronger. Love, understanding, and a bond with Kofi that no force in the world could break. And with that knowledge, Nia took her first steps forward, no longer afraid to walk her own path. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she had the strength to overcome it. Ia and Kofi walked back to the village hand in hand, the night air still and quiet around them. The sea, now calm, seemed to acknowledge their return, its waves gentle and soft as though it had given them its blessing. Nia had learned much that night. The sea had not been her enemy, nor had it ever truly meant to claim her. It was part of her, a reminder of who she was, where she came from. But Nia had realized something even more important. No matter how strong the pull of the past, she had the power to choose her future. As they reached the village, the first light of dawn began to break across the horizon. It was a new day, and with it came the promise of a fresh start. Nia was no longer the young woman who had been torn between two worlds. She had found peace within herself and the strength to walk her own path, one that balanced both the land and the sea, without being bound to either. She turned to Kofi, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, "for staying with me, for believing in me." Kofi smiled, squeezing her hand. "I'll always be by your side, Nia. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." The two of them walked into the village, ready to build a new life. Nia knew the sea would always be a part of her, but now it was not something she feared. It was simply a part of who she was, a piece of her identity, not the whole of her existence. The story of Nia, the mermaid who once sought the sea's approval, reminds us of an important truth. We are not defined by our past or the forces that try to pull us back. It's easy to become trapped in old patterns, torn between two worlds, but true strength lies in the ability to choose the path that is right for us, regardless of where we've come from. The key to freedom is finding balance and learning to live in harmony with the forces that shape us. No matter how strong the pull of the past, we always have the power to step forward and create a future that is ours to shape. And sometimes the people who walk beside us, supporting and believing in us, are the ones who help us find the courage to do so. So, like Nia, don't be afraid to choose your path, to face your fears, and to walk toward your future with confidence. The sea may always call to you, but it is you who must decide how to respond.